Dorian Warren. I'm an associate professor of political science and international and public affairs at Columbia University in New York City. So the founders were very, very smart individuals, but they weren't perfect. And in fact, our democracy wasn't perfect at its founding. But over the centuries, we have, by struggle, by contestation, by just frankly winning arguments, made our democracy a much fairer, much better democracy. So we've amended our Constitution to allow women to vote. We've amended our Constitution to allow Americans to directly elect our senators. We've added many elements to make our elections fairer, to make it that more people can go to the polls. We have things like early voting now, where you can vote the weekend before the actual election day. So we're constantly amending our electoral system to make it more accessible to a broader range of Americans. So because we've expanded our electorate over time, our demographics have changed and have influenced electoral outcomes. So initially it was only white propertied men, then it was all white men, then it was all white men and women, then all white men, women, African American men and women, Asian, Latino. So we've continued to expand the demographics of those who can vote. And therefore it's changed who shows up to the polls. What we know is that it used to be that whites were the most likely to go out and vote on election day. That has changed. Almost every demographic group votes at the same rates now, roughly 60% or so. So it's not the case that one group is much more likely, at least based on racial and ethnic background, to go to the polls over another. What we do know as well is that the older you are, the more likely you are to go and vote. So young voters, ages 18 to 25, are the least likely to go to the polls on election day, whereas what we call senior citizens, those 65 and older, are the most likely to go and vote. Those that go to church once a week are much more likely to go and vote on election day versus those that don't go to church. So there are some things that we know that would predict who will show up on election day. But just because we can predict that doesn't mean that's what will actually happen. So for instance, in the last election, now President Barack Obama was able to mobilize youth voters at a level that no American candidate had been able to do in the 20th century. So there are exceptions to the general rules around who shows up to the polls.